Hello, hello. My name is Samantha Donoff. Welcome to the Animation Creators Panel. Are you guys excited? I know I could say do that again, and I will because I want you to clap again. Clap again. Awesome. Okay, we're going to have an amazing panel here today. We're going to do 30 minutes of moderator questions. That's me asking stuff. Then we're going to do 30 minutes of you asking questions. That's going to be right here at the mic. My friend Crispy with the purple hair is going to be in charge of that. Before you can ask a question, you have to tell him what it is. That way we don't get anything, no spoilers, no marriage proposals, nothing weird. We don't need your life story. Just ask the question. Thank you very much. And without further ado, I'm going to invite our guest, starting first, creator of Hell of a Boss and Has Been Hotel. It's Vivienne Medrano. Next up, creator of Amphibia, it's Matt Braly. And last but certainly not least, creator of The Owl House, it's Terrace. So before we really get into the meat of the questions, everyone on this panel is a showrunner. Compared to a director or a producer, does anyone want to quickly explain what the job of a showrunner is and what it isn't?
Do you want us to go like one by one, or?
One person could take this one, otherwise.
Showrunning is the worst job you could ever have.
Yes, absolutely seconded.
Raise your hand if you want to be a showrunner. You've broken their
wearing,
hearts.
like all the hats at once.
It's every single job at the same time, constantly, every day. It's great.
It is though like the best job and the worst job, because like obviously it's fantastic to see your characters and your world come to life. It's a lot of stuff you didn't ask for. It's a lot of politics. It's a lot of people management. But like, you know, obviously seeing you here today, it's very worth it.
Yay! Yay! Thank you for coming.
Okay. Speaking of management, let's actually go slightly before that. Where did the idea for your show come from? And did you have any like aha moment, or was it gradual?
I suppose I'll start. I had always wanted to do a dark fantasy series because I actually don't like fantasy stories that much. So I wanted to create one that looked like something I would actually enjoy. The simple premise, like, girl goes to magical world, gets taught magic by an old witch, pitched it to a friend. I'm sure some of you have heard this 1,000 times by now. That friend said, no one wants to hear a story that like includes an old woman, and I was like, that's fucking lame. So I made the show out of spite, and 6 years later.
I'll go next. So for my show, Amphibia was actually like the third thing I pitched to Disney, and the first two were like total duds. But for this third pitch, I started sort of from like an emotional place, like, okay, I really want to make a show about a character who gets dropped into a place that she like really doesn't like. But then like over the course of the show, she grows attached to the people there and then like learns to love it at the end. And then from there, I sort of just started like jamming things together and seeing what kind of stuck, I guess. And like the stickiest idea was like, oh, this girl who's stuck in this world of talking frog people. And like everyone who heard it was like, ooh, I see it. And so from there, it moved forward.
Has Been was kind of like, well, I originally made a pilot myself, so it was kind of just like the most self-indulgent, like, I like drawing monsters, and I like doing like adaptions of mythos that exist, and I like the concept of, you know, redemptions is something that matters to me. So I was just like, and I had these characters from all over, like from middle school to high school to college, so I just kind of put them all into a thing and went, here it is, and then, you know, it worked out. So.
It blew up more like.
More than worked out.
But it's it's a very self-indulgent thing because it's also a musical, which is also very niche. So it was a dark, it's like a dark dramedy musical that's, you know, very, very colorful. And well, actually, there's one color and it's red. So
The best color. So when it comes to pitch Bibles, right? You have idea, then you have to make a pitch Bible. How do you decide what goes in it, what doesn't? And did you have the Bible already before you ever pitched, like before you got a meeting, or was that something that came after you already had that?
The pitch Bible, you use it to pitch.
Yeah.
So,
Or, sorry, after the meeting was set up.
oh, after the meeting was set up?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I'm just bad at speaking.
No, I had the pitch Bible before the meeting was set up. Before any meetings were set up, you kind of use that to get in the door, like, oh, I have 15 pages of garbage to show you. Please, do you want to see my nonsense? But we had, at least I think we had seen pitch Bibles from Disney before for like shows like Gravity Falls and Phineas and Ferb, and so it was a fairly simple structure. It's just like cover page for each main character, get a couple pages for side pages, get some episode examples in there, a couple sentences each, and a bunch of cool art. And that's a pitch book.
Yeah, there was kind of a weird template for us, wasn't there? Sort of like it was about 15 pages. It was like the front page had like the log line and an illustration, and then after that you really got into the characters, because like the characters are like the engine. All three of our shows are very character based, so it's like the characters are the engine for your show. So you probably spend the first chunk of your document talking about the characters and what makes them tick and what makes them fun to watch, and then after that you can get into like the world building and the stuff that you love and like the fake episodes. We usually have like 5 like kind of fake episodes that we've written just to kind of give whoever's reading like a little taste of like, oh, here's how the show would actually function. But I think of our fake episodes, did you end up making any of those? We made like one, I think, of those like fake.
I can't remember what ours were. I don't think so.
Oh no, we definitely did like transition one into an actual episode, so it wasn't like just for show. But in my current, like, I feel I've gotten used to doing something too, which is like called a soft pitch, which is like you're just talking with someone and you're like, what about, like frogs? Are frogs hot these days? And like, and then the exec would be like, my God, if I hear another pitch about frogs, I'm going to just like jump off a bridge. And then you'll be like, nope, you know what I mean? Like in your head. So that stuff
a smart
is,
tactic, actually. I didn't think about doing that. It's like, hi, like, yeah, do you like frogs or do you hate?
Like
frogs
like
a lot.
I don't know, Kathy. How do you feel about space these days?
Yeah.
She's like, God, I hate it. And you're like, cool.
No space. If I hear another space bit. Same exact thing. Mine was interesting because, we were making the pilot and I was just like, where will the show go? And so I made the pitch Bible during that stage. And it kind of got half used because it was a little bit of a different process. Like I didn't initially pitch the concept like wholesale. We had the pilot. Yeah. So it was A24 was already attached. So it was kind of like me and them recrafting what the pitch Bible would look like kind of more structured on like a season, which was cool because, but from that, like speaking to Matt's point, we did make one. There was one, well, actually technically two. The first episode was like, I was like, I know exactly what I want to follow the pilot. So that got made. And then there was one episode from that original like concept that I did even before A24 was attached, which was the episode Masquerade, which is the one about Angel. That one was like always, I was like, no, this
is locked.
This is going to be real someday. So that was cool to get to make, like, it had a different title and a different like synopsis, but like the exact same events were for that episode. So it was cool.
So how do you decide which episode is the first?
It's different for everyone. Sometimes people's first episode are actually like the 4th episode in the pipeline. So you've like had kind of a test run for less important episodes, and then you're like, okay, I kind of know what's going on here. Luckily, I was able to make a pilot before the actual first episode that aired, and that kind of helped me get into the world, get into the characters' heads. So I more or less knew what the first episode was going to be like. That's it.
It's funny because, you know, we come from a very specific era of like production strategies. And so when we were starting, and again, like we both worked at Disney, so we have like a very similar experience and we had like the same learnings. And looking back, some of that stuff, I'm like, that kind of doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? But like, for example, it was suggested that like maybe your first episode in the continuity of the show is not the first one you actually started in production. You would actually start with just kind of a rando episode in the middle of the season to kind of get your flow and to kind of, you know, figure out the pipeline and stuff. And then the thinking was by the time you did get to that first continuity episode, you'd be so good at making the show now. But like, it just didn't matter. Like every episode was very difficult to make. So like, we actually did do our first episode, it was like fourth or fifth in the actual pipeline. And that was a bit silly because then we had to retroactively go and like hook stuff up. I get asked this question a lot because the planter family, the frogs, they have like a family snail, which is like this purple snail. But in the pilot, they have like a yellow slug. And everyone's like, who the fuck is that? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Wait a minute.
And it was because that episode got made in a time in the production where we didn't quite know yet. So like, I kind of regret that. I keep telling everyone like, that's a rental, you know what I mean? Like, they don't have any attachment. And the only other thing I'll add is that if you have a show that is episodic, which means that like, they're just kind of one-off episodes and they're not connected, then you can move things around. There's, you know, the first Adventure Time pilot that the first episode that aired was like Candy Zombie Sleepover episode. I don't know if you guys remember that. And that was because it was the episode that Focus tested the best. So they popped it in the front.
so fucking stupid.
I mean, that's,
I mean, that makes sense.
I mean, well, and,
Studios, like, they're like this one.
Yeah. And you'll be told by like 100 different people of why. So Big City Greens was the same way. I worked on that show, and we actually produced an episode that introduced the family to the city, and then like, but it had conflict in it. Oh my God, conflict! You know, it's like, and it was like the family was like new to the city, and they were a little uncomfortable, and like they felt out of place. But by the end of the episode, like, you know, they were comfortable there. And I remember like our head executive was like, well, this episode's a bummer. Like, why would you start with this one? So then, it was, so that one got bumped like way later. But I remember being like, well, now it's weird because someone has to say at the beginning of that episode, you ever remember how we got here? And then it like, whoop, 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 like goes back to
they have to make it like work. Like we did the out of order production only with one episode that we technically production-wise started with episode 3, and it was because it felt like it was like the episode where the characters kind of bond the most, like for the first time, and so we were like it's kind of, but it was also from a practical level because like I came from making Hell of a Boss for like a year, which was like at my studio, and so this is the first time we were working with an outsourced studio and like working with like other artists and other teams, so it was also like literally like almost like a building, like group building like exercise where we were like, okay, we'll see how they do with this episode and how much we like need to help or fix and things like that. So like it was more of like a technical reason for us because they were all like obviously a very set order, so we knew exactly when it would come out. So yeah, we didn't want that to be the first episode just in case, because we were like, well, this is the first one people are going to see, so if there's things we're not able to fix or, you know, we can like figure out the process a little bit. And I think it helped a decent amount. I don't know, because there was also a lot of babying that happened on that episode though, that I'm like, maybe that would have been better on the first one, maybe because we were so like, oh my gosh, like this little thing isn't right, let's fix it. And then we kind of chilled out over the course of the season. I think it was, you know, like it could have gone either way and been fine probably.
Totally.
Speaking of A24, but what were your physical offices like? Did you have any weird decorations?
Me?
Sure.
Oh, I miss my office. Man. Oh man. I had a couch I would take naps on when I had the odd 20 minutes out of my 6-day work week. I had an animation desk, like a golden age animation desk that I would like sit and draw at whenever I had the chance to actually draw on paper.
You could request one at Disney.
I was like, could you like get one?
No,
I tried to buy it, they wouldn't let me.
But you could you could ask the studio for one, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I don't know if they do that anymore though. But Decorations. My mom sends me the weirdest gifts. She sends me like these dragon chalices and a dragon knife, and then she'll just send me the like cuddliest pink blanket with kitties on it. And so like, yeah, my office was just a weird pile of just gifts from my mom, I guess.
I remember your office. It was awesome. It was like kind of like it felt like an arcane laboratory or something. Because you had like you had like Indonesian like masks, right, and stuff. There's some cool shit in there. I remember, so at our building, and this is the one thing that like it made me really bummed out when the pandemic started, and we really haven't returned to work from office completely, so the culture has shifted a bit. But back in the day, the crew areas were really done up to like kind of feel like the shows. So like the Owl House area was like creepy and it was Halloween-y, and there were tombstones, right?
Yeah, we had tombstones and paper mache ribs.
Yeah. You made like a whole like it was
so cool.
sick,
That was
man.
a good like group building.
Oh, it was so
project.
fun because like the
Yeah.
production got together and we like did that shit, and on Amphibia there was lots of like fake like greenery, and although one of our production coordinators was like, what if we had swamp ambience 24/7, and it was
Like a fog machine.
we did get a fog machine for Halloween once, but
Okay.
this was like cricket sounds, and like after like a couple days people were like, you gotta turn it off.
Oh wait, you actually did it?
Yeah. We had like swamp ambiance and stuff. But yeah,
Kind of cool.
I mean, it
awesome.
definitely transported you.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I did love that, and it was all the areas did look really nice. And now when you go, because there's a lot of like, hoteling they call it, where like your workstation is not permanent, so people are less incentivized to decorate now.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I have yet to have an office. That isn't my home. Yeah, like, well, it also partially was because, like, our whole production was done during the pandemic, but also the production company that's doing the show is Bento Box, and they do have an office in LA, but the main production that happens for the show is actually in Australia. So, like, I think if I had an office anywhere or could, it would maybe be in Australia, which is just not feasible for me. So yeah, I'm kind of just, I've never had that experience, which I've always wanted, because I think it's like, not only like a good separation from work, and because I have none, so I'm like, I kind of tried to like carve out an office in my house, so like thankfully I have a different room instead of just the bed is 5 feet away from a desk.
Oh my God, it's so bad.
Yeah, but I do feel like that's such like, because I remember I visited Disney TVA a couple times, and like seeing that, I'm like, this is the coolest. Like
it's
even just having I'm like, this is so cool. So like, I feel like that's such a like cool way to express and everything. But yeah, for me, my office is just very like dimly lit and like colorful lights, and then I have a ton of like fan art that I just put all over the walls. Because I'm just like, it's just, I don't know, like it's like so it is like a very weird little office, but it's like nobody sees it because I'm just.
But in your dreams, like you have a big crew area, you would like 1920s electro funk it out.
Oh,
right?
that would like
you'd have like
if
a
we
piano,
had
right?
yeah in like the universe that we could do something like that, like where it's themed. I feel like it would be like obviously like a lot of red lighting and like very like Halloween-y and like just lots of like. Yeah, with lots of standees. We really like standees of the characters. I don't know why.
Yeah,
like,
I always
you guys
love
have
getting those. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think like because then you're like having a bad day and you walk out, and then there's that character that you're either like fuck you, or you're like, or I don't know. Actually,
what would you do?
It's very on brand for me to curse, but I hope. Am I allowed to? Should I not? Anyway.
Are we allowed to curse?
We've already been.
Yeah.
Okay,
I see some small children. So
Okay, we'll
I'm
avoid
so
it.
sorry. Sorry.
I will avoid
I'm so
saying
sorry.
the nasty.
At other cons, there's a
nasty
sign that says there are kids, don't curse.
Yes.
But see,
Oh,
there's
yeah, like
nothing,
standing.
so.
It occurred to me that this isn't.
I
a
don't
panel,
mind,
like-
but yeah, again, you
I will
did
avoid it.
technically write Disney shows, so.
Yeah. Well, it was me, so at least it's on brand. But no, like you either see that character and you're like, I hate you because I have to draw you for the next like 6 hours, or you go, yeah, I like you. That's why I'm doing it.
Doing it for you, man.
Yeah, making you look good.
Which of your characters would be that person?
We have a standee of King that, or we had a standee of King, and every time I would walk in and out of work, I'd just be like, my heart, my whole heart. But we never made any standees for like any of the villains or bad guys. It was usually just the main three. I think someone would have torn off like Belos's head or Terrace. Like,
Gets worse and worse over this.
yeah, it's
Where these
dangerous.
bullet holes come from? Let me think. You know, for me, this story was always about Anne, the main character, slowly becoming like a good person, and like I don't know about like looking at a standee and being like, I'm doing it for you, but like every time we like went to fight for a pickup, because it was always a fight. We're always in there being like, here's why you should make season 2. It's gonna be rad and all this and all this and all this. I was always like, we have to get to the end, because if we don't, not only will her and her friends be trapped there forever, but like they won't have like changed, and like, isn't that sad? And I remember they were like, oh wow, dry as a desert, man. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really care. But like, yeah, it was. I was always like, we got to finish this. We got to get to the end.
And then you would bring in the standees.
Yeah.
And be like,
Look at her face. Yeah.
Do you want them to be stuck forever?
The eyes are red. And
Yeah, it's like tears.
Splashes a water bottle on it. That's what you made her do.
Yeah, for me it was Alistair, just because we love him and we hate him at the same time. He's a tricky character to animate, and he's also just, you know, but he's also a fun character that a lot of the team likes. So, you know, it's like a mixed bag.
I had a question. Oh, okay. Moving sort of into plot stuff, all of these shows deal with highly flawed, morally gray, often morally not great characters. How do you decide which lessons you'd like to purvey, condone versus condemn?
Wow, that's
Yeah.
a loaded question,
That's
man.
a heavy question.
Very deep.
Oh, you guys go first.
Sure. Oh man, well it's complicated. I really wanted my show to be complicated. My favorite series of all time, and one that came out kind of during the development-ish of Has Been early on, was BoJack Horseman, which I love that series because of how challenging it is, and because of how it pushed the boundaries of what an adult animated show like can be context-wise, and like and content and character-wise. And it also kind of, because when I was developing Has Been early on, I was like, okay, it has to be like a strict episodic like comedy, like kind of like I've never been like the edgiest, like I can't go as shock value as some of the shows that inspired me, but like I was like, yeah, but it's probably going to be like these characters stuck together and they're all from different eras, and like what is that like, you know? And then when BoJack came out, I kind of was like, oh, like no, you can't, like there's something that's real that exists that like is pushing these story boundaries. And so because I've always been more of a storyteller and I've always wanted it to be more of a narrative, so I pushed it more that direction. And for me, like the concept of redemption is complicated, and it's not easy to answer, and it's also not the same for every person. And I think I wanted the show to kind of sort of involve that and involve those questions and things like that. So so when it comes to the characters, like every character, obviously being set in hell, everyone has done something technically wrong, but like to degrees, like you could debate. And I'm really excited because I think, like, obviously I can't talk to season 2 very much, but I think we get a little bit more into that in this season, and I'm, you know, excited for that. And I think that's what's fun to me about I like writing flawed characters, because, like, you know, I feel like I myself am very flawed, and I feel like I've known very flawed people, and I've seen how those people can change, and I've seen how like I can change, and there's an element of like realness and like vulnerability that comes from that. And I think, I don't know, like I can't connect with a character unless they're flawed in some way. So yeah, that's what the show is kind of about.
Yeah, so it's a great question. And I think that for all three of us, it's obvious that we grew up in an era that sort of like had these great gray characters. Like, you know, I'm always asked like, oh, who's your favorite like Dragon Ball character? And it's always been like Vegeta for me. And like, or think about these characters that people love and that we all grew up with, like whether it's Vegeta or Zuko, you know what I mean, or Sasuke, or like, they're these great morally conflicted characters. And I think that like, you know, the stuff that is a little black and white is probably just a little boring for us, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that like you can see that in our characters, that they're really struggling. And I feel like all three of our shows have a line that is similar to like, what can I do to make it up to you? You know what I mean? Like characters begging for redemption or begging for forgiveness, and having to learn the hard way that forgiveness is like given, not taken, you know what I mean, like kind of thing.
And it's earned.
It's earned. It's like,
Yeah.
and even if it is earned, it's like it's still not up to you to.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's a really complicated, and I think we love that stuff, which is like, you know, especially for Dana and I from the 6 to 11 space, I feel like that's like for them, for the studios, that's like giving a cat a bath sometimes, where they're like, I don't understand. Like, why are they morally
They're
conflicted?
doing a bad thing.
Yeah. Therefore,
They're
they're
not eating
bad.
vegetables.
Yeah. There's in our season 1 finale, we have a character named Sasha who like lets go on the top of the tower and like effectively, you know what I mean, like makes a big choice there. And I remember like everyone was asking me like, why did she do that? Like, what is she thinking? And I was like, oh, brother, all sorts of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many emotions going on in there, and she only has a couple seconds to decide. It's petty, it's selfless, it's, you know, angry, it's like, you know, with love, it's all of these things like in a moment. And I feel like to us, like that's the kind of thing we love.
Yeah. I mean, I remember being a 13-year-old girl and feeling petty and selfish and also like wanting to do best by my friends
Right.
and all those things at the same time. And it's very, very confusing. I know that was some of the most fun we ever had in a writer's room was like basically putting a character in a very desperate situation and just trying to seeing like what pushes a character to do the wrong thing? Do they think they're doing the right thing? When does it go too far? When can they bring it back? Who do they like need to work this out with? Can they even work it out with that person? And it would create some like very interesting debates and conversations amongst the writers, because we also had to keep the 6 to 11 audience in mind, which honestly was not like so restricting to us, because we knew kids were smart. We know kids understand these feelings, even if, you know, they might not have the vocabulary of like a 32-year-old, but that's where some of our best episodes came out with. Hollow Mind, Reaching Out, like King's Tide. Those are the kinds of conversations that created those episodes.
Speaking of the line, basically, when it comes to censorship, that used to be a huge thing when we were growing up, and now the line has obviously moved. I mean, you can use the word death in a show now. You couldn't do that when we were kids.
No, we couldn't. We had to every time.
You have to unalive people, right?
Unalive people. I'm gonna end you.
Yeah, and we couldn't.
Destroy you.
We couldn't say death, die. If we ever were able to put that in an episode, it was a fight. We had to say, we're going to destroy you. And it's like, okay.
That's so funny. And again, double standards. We had a lot of death lines.
Yeah,
but
man.
they were, I don't know, man. But it was just like, there was a lot of, I remember in our Gravity Falls crossover episode, the curator gets taken by these monsters. And at the end of the episode, Hop Hop says he's dead. Like he just says he's dead. Yeah. But maybe because it was nobody was force choking someone, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was it was a joke. It was a punchline.
It was a joke. So they were we'll allow it. You know what I mean?
The S&P person chuckled. They're like,
Yeah, exactly. It got somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm lucky that my show's adult, so there's none. It was actually funny. I mean, obviously I cannot tell it on this panel, but there was a word that we can't use on Hell of a Boss. We do, but we have to censor it because YouTube doesn't allow it. And so there's it's a pretty intense word. Yeah, YouTube has some words that they're like no. And so there was one, and I'll just say Australians like it. And I'll say that for all my Australian crew and friends, it's a very widely used word there and in the UK, but here not so much. But yeah, so it was in Has Been, and I was like, oh, I can't say that word. Oh no, it was in one of the songs, and then it was actually a Bento exec, I think, was like, wait, that's not the lyric. The song had this word in it, and I was like, are we allowed to do that? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, Alex, all right, sing it. So it was, so we're lucky with that. Hell is Forever has a one really bad word in it. And
I thought you said, what word is it? I'm like, you can't
oh,
say
no,
it.
I can't say the word. No, Hell is Forever has this magical word that we can't say on Hell of a Boss. It's cool to get to do, because a lot of characters, get hurt and die. And obviously the whole premise of the show is about people who died. So, thankfully having that freedom is nice. And I think that's just the freedom of an adult show. And like, thankfully, the censorship on the show was really not, like, there was very rarely things that were said. And we're obviously starting to push that. Like, I want to see how far we can get in like the violence department. But like, I also feel like that makes sense for the show. And this is the same company that makes Invincible, so I'm not worried.
Yeah. You're like, look at that.
Yeah, I was like, things Invincible have done. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, we can go pretty far. I think before they'll say no.
I do have one very quick funny story about standards and practices because I know everybody's interested in this thing. So basically, like, we had a forest that was called like Murder Woods, and like S&P was like, you can't do that, you can't say murder, that's like obscene. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Do you have any suggestions? They're like, well, you could call it Slaughter Woods. And I was like, okay, done. It's Slaughter Woods. It's way worse.
That's so much better.
It's like graphic.
It's like more graphic.
Yeah, it's like a horror movie. That's
Where are the
great.
kids going? Yeah.
That's good.
I know. I was like, okay.
So I was thinking, I was like, why did I remember the word death being in your show? And the reason I realized is because I actually watched it in Spanish. So speaking of foreign dubs, do you have any control over those? Have you watched them? No, absolutely
Zero.
nothing.
No control at all.
So you don't know that they called your frogs toads in Spanish?
Oh my God.
I don't even know. Like, is there a very like clear distinction in Spanish? There is. Because
There
they
is.
just
So
Yeah.
ranas is the word for frogs, sapos is the word for toads, and the main family call each other sapos.
That is
like,
so
the whole
funny. Well,
time.
they just-
and then
they just like
and
nuke
then-
the world building.
Yeah,
completely.
Well, no, because in the first season, at least, when they introduced the toads, they called them ranas, which is frogs,
That's
which makes
funny,
no
man.
sense.
So that's how they saved
Oh
it.
my God.
But
And
it
then-
would have been great
yeah.
if they just switched it entirely. Like,
They were
all
probably-
the toad characters
They
were called
actually
frogs.
They were probably dubbing one episode like straight ahead, and they were
Yeah.
when they got to the toads, they're like, oh shit.
Oh crap! Oh, yes, these ones are the frogs.
Yeah.
Okay, so we saved it. But no, dubs are so cool. Like I was so one of the reasons that the show got released when it did was because it was being localized, and that takes a long time. And it was the coolest thing to me because I was like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be so much more accessible, and it was so fun. We had like a night where we just kind of watched through the dubs, because I had no control over that, so I had no idea who was cast and who was doing. And so we had like a night where we like, especially with the songs, we were like listening to like all this because the songs got done too, and we were like, oh my gosh, like, and it was fun seeing like how some languages tried to do, specifically the song Stayed Gone, because it's so rapid fire. And so there was definitely some where I was like, oh my God, these poor singers were trying so hard to like try to translate this. But no, it was really cool. And I think specifically with the Latin dubs, I'm really closely connected to some of our Latin crew members who help with the boss dub. And with specifically Latin America, I know they change a lot. Like, it's a lot, yeah, they have much less censorship, so the jokes are edgier and the tone is darker, and they're just able to do it. And no one like overlooks them because they probably don't know what it all is, and they're like, yeah, that sounds good.
Well, I'm so curious because when we went to Pixelotl, like people told us like, dude, the Spanish language dub of Gravity Falls is like legendary, like really high quality.
They'll change jokes. They'll change jokes
Yeah,
to be
I
more
was like,
fitting
why?
to like Latin American like culture and just
Yeah.
the
Or
environment.
like the casting is so good.
And the
or
casting's
something.
really, they really care about the casting, and it's cool. Like, I love it. And the other show that's really legendary in Latin America as a dub is Simpsons. Because they really like they change. There's like specifically jokes that are like just in the Latin American dubs, and it's like it's cool. I love. I think that's so. I'm learning that about dubbing, and it's like.
Did you know that
cool
like
thing.
Top Cat is like a sensation?
Yeah.
And like the characters sound completely different.
Yeah.
So like his best friend, who's like voiced by the same voice actor as like Barney from The Simpsons, here over there is like cute and like small and like my friend from Mexico, when he heard like, he sounds like this here, he was like, what have they done to this character?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's cool.
I think, with that, I should probably open up the floor to the audience. So if you have a question, please line up over here, over there, never mind.
There's a puppy.
Sorry, Crispy's doing something different.
There's a puppy.
There's not a puppy, but like a dog. Look at this. Yeah. I was like, I see a dog shape.
Yeah, with the dubs for us, I mean, I was just like, I hope somebody understands this show over there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we
I
love
always
watching
wish
the
I got to
anime
meet
dubs.
the dub
Yeah.
actors. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, there's like what's cool though is like there's so much love for the property with
That's
those dubs.
sick.
So like they're like so
Oh, that's
happy, and they
awesome.
have their own fan bases.
Dude,
Like,
see so many
That
people
makes me
who you'll never meet, like
I know,
working on
yeah.
these things like internationally.
yeah, it's so cool to see.
Did you
them.
watch Has-Been in Japanese?
Yeah,
I know we
that
like
was
immediately
the
were
one
like,
where they were struggling for stick
Oh,
on.
really?
I was like, oh, you poor thing. The Japanese one. But like, it's like the coolest stuff. I
That's
was like,
Hi.
it's the coolest thing ever.
Okay.
Hi, I had a question if you have any advice for anyone who's trying to get into the animation industry, specifically maybe even storyboarding. I just graduated and I'm looking for animation jobs, and I am obviously having some trouble, and I just would like some advice.
Well, not gonna lie, it's a very odd time in the industry. I feel like traditional, finding traditional storyboard tests that were around 10 years ago is harder. I think still a tried and true way to put yourself out there, obviously, is like putting boards online, I see so many like beautiful animatics on YouTube these days, like showcasing so many young people's like incredible work. And just drawing every day, getting your drawing chops up real good. I don't know if you guys have more specific
just
thoughts.
really, really fast is that like the business card thing does work. So I was getting a haircut and someone was like, oh, because I was like wearing my crew jacket and they were like, you work on that show? And I was like, good sir, I made this show. And they were like, oh, actually my fiance is trying to get into boards and she's been looking for a long time or whatever. And he was like, here's the card. And like we do get a lot of these cards, but like trust me when like we do occasionally be like, beep, boop, beep, boop, boop, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like look at them. And I remember seeing the art and just being like, this is amazing. Like this is an incredible talent. And like we sent it to the Disney recruiting person and this person was hired like in a couple like weeks. You know what I mean? So it's just like, don't be like, oh, it's a barbershop, I shouldn't give someone a card or something. Just do it. And like, you never know.
Yeah, putting yourself out there is like so paramount in the beginning of your career. Even if you are a little scared of talking to people, you have a little anxiety, relatable. You never know what might happen.
I'm a big advocate for putting stuff out there because like I didn't do like I was very untraditional in the sense that I was testing for board roles. I did a lot of freelance character design for some of the bigger studios, but all of it was like freelance and hands off. It was usually VizDev, which is like basically the role that never sees the light of day, or is very rare to see the light of day because you're like the precursor to a show even being greenlit or anything. So it was like I was doing a lot of that. So all I really had was to put stuff out for myself because I was like, well, I can't post any of this, and I'm not getting any of these studio jobs, so I'm just gonna do things myself, and I did fan animations and fan animatics are like a great, especially if you want to get into boards, because now when we hire, like for my studio or for anything, we don't care about where you went to school, if you went to school, like any of that. We really just care about like what you can do, and usually that's through a strong reel and a strong work online and just whatever you have, and that's so I just post your stuff, and you'll get better too the more you do, like so just do it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Hello. I've started to keep it kind of brief here. I want to ask Matt specifically, do you know what exactly was the full details, or not necessarily full details, but as details as you can, what exactly happened with the True Colors delay and the iTunes jumping the gun? And did it lead to any changes in season 3?
I do. I mean, of course, I have all the details. It's not like a mystery to me. What I will say is that, in our conversation about censorship and S&P, sometimes the process breaks down. And so in our case, for this episode, somebody pearl clutched at the last second when it was animated. And this was like an episode that had gone through every process and was approved from all angles. I'm gonna just go on record saying like it did not change season 3 tremendously. You still saw our vision, you know what I mean, and I'll stand by that. Obviously, though, we made that season terrified that they could pull an episode from air just like they did before.
Yeah. What was that first part again about the process breaking down and what?
Oh, just that like that was a great example of like how you can seem to do everything by the books
Yeah.
and it gets approved, and then the process broke because somebody at the very top pearl clutched at the last second when the episode had been animated. You know what I mean? So that's a breakdown of process where it's like if you keep doing that, you're gonna like destroy the studio.
It's not
basically.
gonna work. Yeah.
Okay.
Good to see.
Hello. I love all your shows. It's very great to be here. But so my good question is for Dana. So in the finale, I'm watching and dreaming. When Bellows was trying to manipulate Luz again into forgiving him, he basically died from the storm. And I heard a little discussion with the fandom. So was that Luz controlling the weather, or like the Titans' the final will? Like,
I did enjoy leaving that up to interpretation. To me, it kind of metaphorically was the island itself giving Bellows the middle finger. It's like, like you go away now, you get washed away. Whether it was, Papa Titan doing it consciously or unconsciously, I'll leave that up for the viewer to decide like what feels best. But it was the island itself. It was nature. It was the power of everything. Kind of, metaphorically telling Bellows, your time is over. You can go. Yeah. Thank you
okay,
for the
great.
question.
Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Speak of the devil.
You.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate the Titan for doing that. Anyway, this is for everyone. Knowing what you know now about your series, is there any parts like early on that you would want to change, like either minor or major? Like knowing what you know now about your series.
This is weird. I would have been a stronger advocate for myself at certain times, and this is political, but till this day, I regret how the first season was released. It was all in a binge format, but it was on cable, which was absolute nonsense. And I remember being in the room and everyone being like this. They said this was the quote. We're like nurses delivering a baby. This is your baby and it's your first time, but we've delivered so many babies. Just trust us. It's all going to work out. But I was like, but this strategy is terrible. I knew it was so weird. It was so weird. But I just remember knowing in my heart it was a bad idea, and I wish I had kind of been like, this sucks, you guys. I'm sorry?
Oh, they thought if it would be good for Star, it would be good for you.
Yeah, and it was
It's not bad for
the
everyone.
environment was changing constantly, what I mean,
Yeah.
on that network.
Yeah. In a similar vein, I would have loved to be a bigger advocate for myself, creatively. We had a lot of executive control in season 1, and I was pressured by 6 different executives to make all these changes that some ended up working out, some haunt me to this day. But overall, I'm still happy with how the show came out, obviously. But there's knowing how to show run after you finished your first show. There's always something you wish you could go back. Oh, I could have done that differently. Oh, I could have made that process easier.
I don't know about both of you, but I when I go to sleep at night, I hear horrible quotes from people that have said fuck, or messed up stuff to me, and that kind of thing where I'm like, that was so stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've gotten really lucky because I will say, so A24 as a partner, every production has ups and downs, but they were very hands off, which was really, really appreciated. And likewise, there aren't that many, every so often there's a note or something where you're like,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
But like, that I think that's kind of normal for any creator because, you know the show
Yeah.
super well
Yeah.
and you know what you want from the show. And when anyone, has opinions sometimes, even if it's not a bad idea or not a bad suggestion, whatever, you're still like, yeah, but like,
For sure.
no,
You're
yeah.
like, but it needs to come from me. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So I totally like thankfully, because I've heard some horror stories. So thankfully none of that's happened to me yet. So because I also don't know if I react very well.
Right.
So I'm also like, oh no, please don't. But yeah, like I think as far as I mean, that first season was a huge challenge. It was a lot of growing pains between my team that I trusted really, really strongly and some of the other people at the other studio. And there was just a lot of there was a little bit of, tension as we experienced that first season. But for me, I think my biggest regret is just, not trying to be a little bit more mediating between, because I felt like that was kind of my job. But at a certain point when you feel like you're in the trenches too, that you don't feel like you want to do that, so, but, in hindsight, I feel like, because this season has been really, really comfortable so far in terms of like the team, which makes such a big difference. So I really love having a team that's all on the same page and everyone like loves the show and cares about how it turns out. And so yeah, like a lot of that. But as far as the actual show itself, like I'm very proud of that first season. Like we poured our hearts and souls into it and our like blood and tears into that first season, like so much, because it could have been the only one. And it was such a passion project and so many people cared about it that it was like, this has to be the most bombastic first season that we can make it. And so there's no part of it that like, obviously like we would have loved more episodes and more time, but with what we were given, that was the story I wanted to tell. And it was, I'm happy without it. I'm so proud of the team for pulling that off because it was tough.
Sick.
All right, thank you.
Hello. So what was the inspiration of the design of the hotel? It's for Bibsy.
Okay, I was like, very specific. The hotel, I wanted it to be like vague. I think like one of the vaguest, like for the first design of it, like maybe one of the vaguest bases was like sort of the Tower of Terror, kind of, this very vintage,
so good, man.
very, very iconic kind of like just kind of pillar type thing. But I really love like neon lights and I really love like big flashy marquees and things like that. So it was like combining that with like also like a circus aesthetic because the building is technically one of Lucifer's buildings. So he's like a ringleader. So it was like kind of bringing some of that in and some of the kind of apple and snake imagery of like the biblical story. And so yeah, it was kind of, that was a challenge though. I'm very proud of it though. And one of my best friends, Sam Miller, is my art director and she designed the hotel and she's super proud of it. She's like, that's literally her baby. She loves, as like a background designer, she's like so passionate about the building specifically. Yeah. So she was like, that is what she cares about more than any other character in the show. Well, she's like the hotel. Exactly, yeah. And so she poured a lot of love into it, and then we killed it. and then we have a new one now. So at the end of the show, we have a new design, and so now that's what we're working with. And so it's been a little interesting though, because I kind of love the old one. I'm like, oh, I miss her.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Hello. So I want to ask my question to everyone and from a very ground level perspective and no animation background perspective in terms of getting your story out there. Just I have so many ideas and like floating around and just like it feels overwhelming sometimes. So I want to ask what the best way in your opinion is to kind of collect those thoughts and solidify them into a thing that you can eventually get to that next step to display them to the world. But just like that initial just like getting everything in one thing. Kind of.
So you're talking about from ideation to
yes.
like organizing?
Yes.
Oh, that's a fun question. Oh my goodness.
That's a great question.
Yeah. When I feel like I have 1,000 ideas for something and I can't like organize my thoughts, I'll just start writing a scene from whatever I want to do. Like no one needs to ever see this. I don't even need to reread it, crumple it up, throw it away if I want to afterwards, but just like start writing character moments or scene moments just randomly. You don't have to start organizing them yet. And the more you do that, the more your brain will start naturally, the more your brain will start to naturally try to connect them. And that's when you could be like, I want this and I want this. How can I make these two things happen? And then you start, thinking of connection scenarios, and you start teaching yourself your own way of organizing. You can pick up, there's 1,000 books out there about 3-act structure, about like how to organize outlines to script, and those can be helpful, but I do think it's like very important for writers and storytellers to like come up with their own way of mental organization, and then see like, oh, okay, here's like a simpler way to do it. Oh, I'm already doing that, cool, and it just kind of adds to your skill set.
Yeah, I thought that was a great answer. Just write it down. Just start creating like something actual. You know what I mean? Like, how many times have you heard someone be like, I got the best idea, it's up here, it's all up here, you know what I mean? And it's like, but executing it is like a whole different animal. So like the more you start getting it on paper, the more your thing can actually get better and better and better. And it's okay. I would highly recommend your first pass is always just like, blah, you know what I mean? Just vomit it out, everything that excites you and that you want to do with this project. And then from there you can be like, this is crazy.
Yeah. No, brilliant advice. I'm a notoriously disorganized person. I feel like I don't write things down enough, but that is like a mistake, like, because I'll be like, oh, I had that plot point at one point. I had it in my head at some point, but it's gone now. And so I think just writing it down, even if it's like a mess that will be like changed later, like you'll have the pieces that you want and you'll have a record of it, and then you can like always, and that's always how a first draft, like there's a reason that people call it a first draft, or something feels like a first draft, because it's not as cohesive as it can be over multiple, drafts of it.
And to add on to that, sometimes what helps too is like, oh, I don't know like what to do for this thing, but I know what I don't want to do, and you just create a to-do list of like, I hate this, I don't want to do this. So like you know,
Yes.
and carry around a notebook with you everywhere, or like write in your notes apps all the time. Just like start making it a habit. Good luck to you, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hello. So I was wondering if you had any tips on like pitching, how to get to a point where you're ready to pitch, how to choose who to pitch to, and how to make that pitch more successful.
It's a great question.
And also how far along you should be before you pitch.
That's a good question.
That's a great question.
Yeah. Because I've heard successful pitches go from like people have worked on it for years and maybe have been pitching it for years, and then it finally got greenlit and it's great. And then I've also heard pitches be like, someone just made a comment at a cafe and an executive was like,
it can go the
greenlit.
whole gambit of things.
Which is
But how to
very
know when you're
frustrating.
like ready? You've got this
Like
idea
mentally
you've been
ready.
like cooking on, and you're like, when do I show this to someone?
I never felt ready. I was just like,
I don't
You're
think
never
you're,
gonna
because
know.
when you pitch it, it's always going to change. Like sometimes because the studio shifts it somewhere, sometimes because just you grow and you go, no, actually, like, because like, the original Has Been Pitch Bible is very outdated. Like, even from knowing where I wanted the show to go, a lot changes just in practice. You go, oh no, and you get writers who come in and you get artists who come in who like can add to it and make it stronger. And so I feel like there's never like a ready moment. There is probably a moment where you feel like it's meaty enough to like have someone who doesn't share the vision can sort of see it. So I would say, obviously the visual aid being strong and the having like, enough of a concept for where the show would go or what it would be, to have some episode concepts and things like that. I think once you're at that stage, and the other thing, and I'm not a great pitcher. I've gotten much more used to like public speaking and talking to people, but like pitching still, and like any kind of memorization, I can't memorize things. So I like, as soon as like, it's like there's a visual, but like I have to kind of know it so that I'm not looking at what I wrote to like repitch it. That's like what gives me anxiety. So I would say maybe practice that because it is like an element, because the more you connect with the person you're pitching to, the more they're going to feel confident in you. That's kind of what I've learned from my personal experience. Because when you're just reading it, it just kind of reads as like, oh, you didn't prepare, you know, to some people.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Like it's not like they're not always thinking, oh, you're anxious and you're nervous and you're whatever. They're going, how are you going to handle a bunch of team members, and how are you going to handle talking to us? And so there's an element. I will say one thing about being a showrunner is like, obviously you can have a lot of skill, but one of the skill sets that like I had to develop and was challenging is just, like advocating for yourself, speaking to these people, and some of that comes from that learning to kind of connect with who you're pitching to and speak with confidence and have it kind of prepared, because that'll kind of help you as that comes in,
And I know I asked a lot of things in my question. I know I crammed a lot into it, but like, do you have any suggestions for like picking who to pitch to? Like,
Sure. Like, I think at the beginning you should definitely find someone who you're comfortable with. You know what I mean? This is a new idea and you're getting used to the idea of sharing it. You should definitely pitch to someone who's close to you and like who you trust. I think it's tricky to find someone who you creatively trust, but you need to sort of find a way to separate between someone who is making your work better and making you feel more confident and someone who's kind of like bringing you down. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of potential writing partners who like actually are not helping you, and you need to, and we get paired with them all the time, you know what I mean? Like, so it's tricky to identify. It's like, I'm not getting energy from this person, they're taking it from me. So that's something to kind of try to feel for, vibe for a little bit.
It's a warning sign that you might clash a little
You might
too
clash,
much, like creatively.
You're totally right.
Exactly,
Okay, so we are basically at time, but because we got in a little bit late, we're going to go 5 minutes past, but this is going to be the speed round. So questions very quickly, answers very quickly.
Fun for us.
Okay, hello. My question would be, it's for Dana, and it's what was your favorite character to write and design across the entirety of Owl House, and how early on did you design that character?
Ida. I knew what she was going to look like. She used to have a ton of tattoos.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. Thank you.
Nice.
All right, Charles Pomeroy, handle Tune for Thought. A few of you might have seen me. So, with how incredibly turbulent, let's put it lightly, the animation industry currently is, what do you speculate the future of it might look like?
Man, if we knew, we'd be millionaires.
Well,
I
did say speculate.
I mean, I can speak to what I'm hopeful for. I'm really hopeful that indie animation kind of rises even more than it already has, because obviously my show wouldn't exist if I didn't make it myself and the studios had faith in it. And I feel like there's a possible turn of more of these projects being created by passionate teams and finding success through audiences, and and there's nothing stopping people from creating these things and putting them out there. And I'm hoping that with projects like mine being like kind of entered into the industry that way, more of these studios are starting to can help to fund these amazing ideas, but also keep more of the control in the hands of the creative artists, because that's kind of how my show is working out. And I'm really hoping that more shows are like this, because I think it could be at least a good tide. Obviously, I have no idea if that'll happen. I really hope so. So I'm hopeful.
I agree with that logic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I completely agree. I hope to see more of that.
Yeah, I agree too. I hope we're gonna see kind of the death of the middleman.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, like with Glitch and Has-Been.
Unalive of the
the unaliving of the middleman. That we'll see a future that is more direct to consumer, from the artist to the consumer, and not like some person in the middle who doesn't know what they're doing.
All right, thank you.
This question's for Matt. I just want to say, how does it feel from going from a show creator to a co-director? Would you say the people management part, like you managed in the beginning, is more difficult, same, or less stressful, or more stressful?
And you guys can speak to this too, but like the people managing part of show running and directing is the giant kind of like most difficult part that like no one trains you for and that you kind of just have to do and learn and experience. I think that like, you know, right now, directing, so I'm trying to get a movie off the ground at Sony. It's very early days, so it's actually just me and a couple other people. So it's very small right now, you know what I mean? And so that's been different for me too, because I miss having so many people to interact with.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I just had a quick question. As a voice actor, some of the lines are really funny, but they don't make the cut. What's one of your funniest bloopers from each of your shows?
That didn't make the cut?
That didn't make the cut.
Oh my God, there's one there's a really funny line in like our second episode, Best Franz, where Hop Hop is like looking out the blinds and he's criticizing all the other frogs in town. He's like, they're prejudiced, they're horrible, they have closed minds. And then he turns and he's like, not me, of course. And we cut it because like, you know, there was no time and stuff, but I quote it even to like my wife at home, but it's like, it's not in the show. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
I love that. I love that you had one ready because I was like, I don't remember.
We have a bunch of Hootie lines. Alex just goes off the rail with improv when he's voicing Hootie.
Love Hootie.
And like sometimes he just like starts like, I can't do it.
Let's
like
hear it.
he'll just start like dropping the F-bomb in like Hootie's voice.
Oh my God.
Just trying to like make me laugh. I'm like, I have to finish this episode, please.
I can imagine that's probably the most fun part of like recording for a kids show specifically because the actors, like you'd be surprised how many of these actors are just like filthy, like with their language. Exactly.
Yeah.
So like it's with.
Have you guys heard the Flapjack story about like Bubby the whale?
No.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
all right, this is a fun one.
Oh my God,
I
it's
feel
so funny. I love that show. And like there was a cut, like same thing, they were just messing around and the actress for Bubby, she's so funny. Like they left in a line where she cursed kind of by mistake and it went in front of the executives. But I'll try to quote it right now without like, but it's this part with like Knuckles and Flapjack and everybody's riffing at the end. And then there's a beat and Bubby the whale just says, y'all motherfuckers are crazy. And it like went to like really, it was in the mix. It was in the mix.
That's brilliant. That would have been the best ever
that's
if
hilarious.
that had gone through. Even if they censored it.
I know.
That would have been great. Like just the beeping would be great on that. Like that's awesome.
All right. Thank you so much. I love all your work.
Thank you.
Very last question.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Hello, I hope you all are having a wonderful day. So my question is, as someone who is currently studying concept design and illustration, what are some things you look for in a portfolio that you find could fit the style direction of the show that you are, running and show running?
Great
Yeah.
question.
I'm so sorry.
That someone will answer.
I mean, I guess speaking for my show, just because it's very, very specific in the look and style, a lot of it, like, I really like seeing really unique shapes. Shape language is big for me, so it's something that, like, I'll get really, like, picky about, because sometimes our board artists, like, will add this, like, brilliant shape language, and I'm like, if that isn't exactly what it looks like, because it's so good, and sometimes to put the characters more on model, you lose that, and I'm like, no, but, like, so I love shape language, so obviously in concept art and in design, that's a big thing. And color for me is big. Like I'm so blown away by like amazing like people who are just have this just incredible knack for color and color keys and things like that. So for me, I'm very drawn to strong colors and strong like shape language in reels and stuff like that.
For like character designs, I like looking for structure and balance. If a character feels like I can see them like turning in my mind, I look for the skeleton underneath the skin, and like this is just for my show and stuff I want to create. Because I saw Ghost in the Shell when I was like 10 years old, and I was like, oh, that's
metal.
beautiful. Yeah, that's metal as fuck. Colors, I always like looking for kind of, well, for Owl House, like I just let my art director do his thing because he was freaking amazing. But Personally, I do look for people who can balance between like something fantastical and unique and beautiful and colorful, saturated, and then also can switch to a more realistic ambiance. Like people who can do a variety of things, like go from something super, super stylized to something like super, super realistic, or like super colorful to something more monotone. If you can do a little bit of everything, you can work on any show. Variety is like so important.
Is your work, your portfolio, is this more background design or character? What are you specifically?
Character, I would like to work for like Mattel and Monster High.
Nice, nice.
So,
nice.
but as someone who just wants to get out there, start, because I don't know where I'm going to be after graduation.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like I would like to just build up my portfolio to like work on anything, animation, game, doll, anything like that.
Since it's character, I would say, character design is storytelling. So also look for those little details and those poses that can really tell a story. Like if your character loves music, does she have a harmonica in her pocket? Like just those little things that really let the person know, like, hey, I'm more than an amazing drafts person. I'm also a storyteller.
Yeah, and on a specific note, just because I did a little thing for Mattel for Monster High for like 5 seconds.
Whoa,
Again, the biz dev thing that never saw the light of day, never will. But as somebody who's done that, I believe, like also fashion is huge because it's also, there's a practicality to it because they're making something that they want to turn into merchandise. It is a slightly different mindset for design, so you have to kind of make sure it's practical to make and it's cohesive across all of them, like, or whatever style you're using is like cohesive for the whole line of characters. But it is really fun because, obviously with brands like that, they're trying to reinvent them, and do something different. So there's always like tons of freedom there. But yeah, like specifically for design for things that are going to be like for companies that are going to turn it into merchandising, that's just a slightly different way to go about it. So you just have to make sure that they can make it, because then they'll go, so.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Of course.
Thank you all so much. And with that, the panel is officially over. Everybody will be at their booths at some point today. I know Dana and Viv both have panels tomorrow. I will be runner for both. Crispy will be mod for one, and I believe Morgana will be mod for the other. So we hope to see you then.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you.
We survived.
Awesome. Fantastic job, man. That was great.
As soon as you were like, make sure you hand out cards, I was like, I forgot to hand cards.
Just the way.
So, you guys want to do
Yeah,
this?
let's do it.